Hello, everyone. This is episode 2 of the Alicia Gray Wayward Woman podcast. And today, of course, I'm Alicia Gray. I wanted to go quickly over some things that, again, have been kind of on my mind about the upcoming election. I don't want to get too much into it because there is a lot. And I feel as if there is so much that it would kind of, make you feel as if I'm swayed one way or the other toward either candidate. And the truth is I'm not. But this particular podcast is about the Democrats because I believe that many of us in the African American community in particular have been burned time and time again by the Democratic Party. And this started with Barack Obama, believe it or not. And I saw this coming. I think I voted in 2008, like the first time, I will admit it. I was working, I had my kids, and I was just like, I'm just going to vote. But it just didn't sit right with me because I didn't like the propaganda associated with voting for a quote-unquote black president. After that, I was just like, forget it. And I haven't voted since because it's been such a bunch of bull hockey, malarkey, you know what I mean? BS. It's been a bunch of propaganda, a bunch of pandering, and silliness about what's going to happen and what didn't happen. Now, I can't blame Obama for the 2008 crash. He did give us our money. Okay, I'm just saying, why bail the banks out, though? That was the problem. And what has happened afterwards has been the overwhelming feeling that we're still paying back those banks. And I don't think that that's fair. I think there was a feeling from Obama that he could kind of hide the truth. He was deporting just as many migrants as Trump did. That's the truth, and he should have been. However, when the white liberals heard about it, this is when it became a big debate. Now, in our last podcast, I discussed the horrors of white liberalism and how it can lead to a number of different things, how it can kind of overrun itself into neoliberalism, where we're, overextending ourselves to other countries and getting in their wars because warmongers love both white and neoliberalism because they use that as a backdrop to get away with whatever murder, literally, that they're planning. And I say murder or murderers, plural, because it is a murderous policy to ignore what's right in front of you that's causing harm, right, under the guise of liberalism. So it is still that very simplistic Malcolm X understanding of how both the Democratic Party and white liberalism are combined, in order to create an angst for the African American community, right? We see this so often. It just is startling how many times that the black community actually goes along with this just out of sheer fear of doing something different. Now, this election, we've seen the pandering go to monstrous levels. I mean, Megan Thee Stallion, oh my gosh. And I mean, on my thigh-ish, it's just, it makes my skin itch to see the video, right? I don't even watch the video because it's so stereotypical and so stupid. And I don't have anything against this person. Again, I hate the word stupid. It's so silly. The younger girls need to know this is not empowerment. This is not feminism. It's really silly stuff that a record executive came up with to exploit black women, right? You can be sexy, you can be cute, you can be smart, but you don't have to just be blatantly like, this is goofy, this is street, this is whatever comes out of my mouth, right? And I think that there's minimal effort now in order to even remotely make this seem like it's an intellectual thing with rap. They just don't care. There's no more Tupac. There's no more even remote theological understanding of this helping someone. It's strictly just something for white consumption. It really is. It's not for our consumption, because we are, their consumed product. And when I say that, it is the gullibility of the black community that's selling these records or CDs, whatever they're called now, whatever they're selling, MP3s, streams, whatever. It's because you're gullible, right? And so the more gullible you are, the worse it's going to get. The less you demand, the less you're going to get. You have to understand that all of the executives, all of them, and I'm not talking about the labels, I'm talking about the actual companies, Sony and so forth, are white men. All of them. And a lot of them are Jewish. You were not thought of as anything but an afterthought. And in some cases, you are a joke. And I don't like the feeling of people treating African American people like they're chattel, or this is some type of blackface adventure to see if they can scam more money out of the youth. That's the first thing. So when I see stuff like that, I can't look past it. It doesn't even have any angst of sense in it. It just doesn't. Like, why would you have to pander to African American people and bring someone like that? It's always the same thing. But this is the worst that it's ever been. Stevie Wonder, come on, for the older people. And then it's going to be, I got nothing against Stevie Wonder, but they drag him out every damn election. Leave the man alone. We are so tired of seeing Stevie Wonder. Black people are more than just Stevie Wonder and some stereotypical goofy rap stuff. And that was what people were saying on TikTok, on YouTube, and everywhere else. But you see how people ignored us. It's almost eerie the way that they just act as if we don't exist, right? And when people ignore you to the point where they can say concisely, I don't care what you say, that is a very dangerous area. And they talk about North Korea, they talk about China, but they don't talk about themselves within that same vocabulary. If you're openly ignoring people who are saying, this is not your fan base, you're not a performer or someone in Hollywood, you're a politician. And if the people are voting for you are saying, this is stereotypical, this is shameful, this is, disrespectful, perhaps you should stop doing it. But no, did she? No, it only got worse, because in her mind, this is what black folk are like. This is what black folk want. And I'm just going to keep doing it. Then the ushers were pushed out, and don't nobody want to hear about his confessions. I'm telling you, I remember when I saw Usher on Star Search when he was discovered. I remember that very day when I saw him. I think I'm a few years older than he is, like 2 or 3 years older. And, I said, yeah, that guy can really sing, before he got to, Diddy and all of that. As Pac used to call him, Dum Dum Diddy. So I knew about Diddy, way back. Pac told us that from day one. But before all this stuff happened with Diddy, sure. But a lot has happened since then. And I got nothing against his performance or against him being an artist, but is it appropriate for him and his confessions to be all up and supposed STDs and cases against him and all this kind of stuff? And I don't know if he was accosted by Diddy. I don't know. Assaulted. I have no idea. But is it appropriate, especially right now, for these people to be on stage and giving their endorsements? Does she really think we are out of our minds? And I'm not even going to mention the Beyonce thing. It is absurd to think that Diddy just went to jail. She has been linked to him, and this woman thinks that something's wrong with us and we can't discern reality from fantasy. I'm not even really a Beyonce fan anymore. I haven't been a fan of her since Destiny's Child. Period. When Single Ladies came out, that's when I stopped listening to her. And the reason? Because she wasn't single. She was married. And she was saying, all you single ladies. And of course, I'm a single mom, so I was like, how are you talking to me, ma'am? I don't have cognitive dissonance. I can clearly see that you're actually addressing yourselves and using single women within that context. And I didn't feel comfortable with it. Now, you could say she did this song prior to her getting married. But I don't think that was really an accident. She pushed that whole thing throughout her whole entire career of being this single woman. And then after that, it was the relationship drama back and forth, because the younger girls can get with that, the lemonade and all that corny mess. But it just got worse from there. The drunken loves, it was just, I can't describe it. It was fake, right? And it's just not for me. I didn't say she wasn't a good artist. I didn't say she can't sing. I didn't say she can't dance. But a presidential candidate endorsement, I think you can endorse whomever you like. But this is just like the Taylor Swift endorsement for Kamala Harris. Like, what? I just think they believe the American public is a bunch of airheads. And we completely miss the situation where, what's actually going on, it is nowhere to be seen within the context of what we actually are able to comprehend. Like, did anyone miss that Iran was declaring war on Israel and we were backing Israel? And Iran has monumental amounts of nuclear weapons. Did anyone miss that? Perhaps you've heard of that while Beyonce was speaking or whatever the crap she did at this silly, show off thing for presidential candidate. See, I mean, it was like, what? Anybody see that? Anybody see the fact that Israel and Iran are bombing themselves into oblivion, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? I should say bombing one another. And we're supposedly right there helping Israel. And you know what? That's illegal. We're not supposed to be involved in this war. We can aid our allies, but we are not supposed to be involved in anybody else's war. And this is crossing the line. This is what neoliberalism does. Like, hey, buddy, I'm talking to Biden. We're not supposed to be over there with our foot, like 1 foot in, ready for war with Israel. I mean, I'm from a military area. In Hampton Roads in Virginia, there's a large Navy. We have like the largest Navy on the East Coast. Whenever there's a war like this, they always deploy. And some people are saying that they're deploying already to go over to Israel. That is absurd. You ought to be up in arms. I don't know if it's a magic spell. I don't know if it's black magic. I don't know if it's a hex. I don't know what it is that is making people think that Megan Thee Stallion, Usher, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift is better than World War III, when I don't listen to them at all anyway. They're irritating enough alone without the fact that these people are leading us into World War III. And I don't know if you're not educated. I mean, really, honestly, it just seems like these people are in a sunken place. It's not just the black community, it's everyone. You cannot possibly be missing that. That's the first and foremost, most frustrating thing about this. Just people not understanding the reality of the situation and how dire it is. It's not just a genocide in Gaza. It's the fact that these folks are literally trying to gaslight you into believing they are not creating a scenario for World War III. And you're buying it. I've had people consistently try to gaslight folk into believing things they made up about me. I'm not an intellectual. I'm some sort of bimbo that dates guys randomly, and which did get me sexually assaulted, by the way. I am a black feminist, so I am very candid about that. And people know I'm also very candid about saying I was one step away from buying a 32 because I believe in carrying arms. What people do is try to make you seem like you're the opposite in order to make you seem like you're in a weakened state because they're weak so that they can better attack you because they're cowards. They'll say whatever they can say in order to make themselves feel better and make you look bad to get other people on their side in order to be able to gaslight the situation. Period. It's not working. Not on me anyway, but I think that it is working on some members of the American public, and I'm having issue with this. Don't believe the mainstream media. Please do your own research. But sometimes it's even in your face, and you still don't pay attention. It is dire. And I know people are saying things, especially those that are educated, but the problem is the popularity contests that's going on right now, it's worse than in high school. High school, people should not be in the White House. You know, not still in high school or still thinking like they're in high school. You should be not worried about who's the most popular. You should be worrying about who's going to save your life and your children's lives. Period. And I'm just having just a terrible feeling to the point where it makes you apathetic and you don't care anymore. So these are the things that are the foundations of what I'm pretty much going to talk about today. First of all, if you're talking specifically about Kamala and what she's promising, and yes, I've seen this lackluster, I don't even know what you want to call it. It's not an agenda. It's not, supposedly she has all these pages. I'm like, I'm not reading that. Is it blank? And just these terrible things that keep blaring out at us on the first couple of pages, because that's all I need to see. So, one, she's against reparations. I also wanted to add, prior to this, I do understand that Kamala had the silly black men, weed smoking comment, marijuana supposed bill, or whatever stereotypical racist thing that she said, in addition to supposedly changing her stance on reparations. But I don't believe that, and I'm not going to acknowledge that. We're just going to go with she's not giving us reparations. She said if Congress brings it up or something, then yeah, she'll vote for it. The same, crap that she always says. And we all know that she's not going to in any way, shape, or form ever see this legislation come to Congress. So she knows this in 9 out of the 10 cases of things that she actually states that she's going to vote for, which is why she keeps saying that. And she needed to try to get some people to vote for her, as if the whole entire black community is black men, and they're the only ones that want reparations, and they automatically smoke weed. I can't speak for black men. I don't have really any of my family except for a couple of cousins, but I can tell you that I think that most of the time that's really more than what's on their minds, right? And as far as reparations, that was a very, very petty and silly thing for her to have said. So I'm dismissive of it all. And, here's my opinion. Reparations. Those of us who are African American, whether you be ADOS, Foundation of Black Americans, whatever you want to call yourselves, you're just a plain old black folk, African American person, many of us are like, no way, that's a deal breaker. I don't care if she's black, she's white, she's whatever, checkerboard. If you came into the game saying, there is no way I'm going to give you reparations, just like RFK, you're gone. Now, at least he did say he changed his mind at the last minute on reparations, but what? You're not even going to consider it because you just feel like it's just ridiculous. Won't talk about it. Every time you're around black people, you feel so afraid of them. And I'm not just talking about the ones that get on your nerves, because we can get on each other's nerves. Trust me, I'm not going to like every black person. And if they get on my nerves, I'm going to let them know, because I hate insecure people that internalize things. So if you have a black person that's internalizing their insecurities, I'm going to be the first one to say, no way. Back up off of me. We're not going for that right now. I'm not that type of person. I need to find me someone with a tad bit more of an intellectual understanding of anything, because all black folk aren't the same. All black folk aren't educated the same. All black people don't have the same understanding. We're going to differ in our opinions. But if you're just uncomfortable around the fact there are African American people who question you, as we've seen in many of her debates or so-called interviews, I'm not even talking about the word salad. I'm talking about common sense, where she is terrified to address the black community. I'm telling you, I don't know, people have said she's maybe an agent. I think it looks more like MK to me. She was in Canada. I've mentioned before, there was an MK Ultra project. My master's degree is in psych, but it's in all the textbooks. It was in Canada. The program ended. They could have renamed it as something else. But a lot of people come out of Canada who end up acting similarly to this. Okay, now she has the immigrant background. That could be affecting her self-esteem, the code switching and stuff. I mean, we get that. But what we don't get is why, she decided that she's going to be African American and we're going to go ahead and say it's okay, while she co-opts our ideals and try to put them over to the immigrant and the migrant community when we didn't agree to it. So what's the technique, people, when you think someone's going to disagree with you? Psychologically, you attach white liberalism and try to make people think that because white people go along with it, you're irrational for saying something. You're hostile. Then we're the enemy because we actually spoke up for ourselves. That way, you never, ever, ever will get justice, because you're always going to be silenced by this fear. Oh, they're going to think we're uncivilized because we spoke up for ourselves. And that is wrong. That's not even the Democratic Party. That's just an evil, evil person. So 1, no reparations. 2, no end to the war in Gaza and the Palestinian genocide. Let me say that again. No end to the war in Gaza and the Palestinian genocide. Unbelievable. She's following Joe Biden's policy to the letter. She's kissing Israel's behind. And Israel, I understand, is paying a number of these people. If it's not through the lobbyists, it's through other means. But I cannot understand why she won't address this at all either. And she's putting Islamic people out of her events openly, which I think is horrible. Anybody who protests her doesn't get to come in. Like, who would stand in line for this event anyway? And I'm going to get to that Beyonce concert, circling back in a moment about that. But no end to the war in Gaza or the Palestinian genocide. And I just mentioned a moment ago that it's escalating. So this is the person you're putting into office, right? Versus Donald Trump. At least Donald Trump, even though he might not be very bright, does know that he needs to negotiate a deal to try to stop war. And that's something I don't give Donald Trump any play, right? I don't play with sexual assault allegations one way or the other. I just told you I don't play with racism. And he has had a lot of racism in his past. He has had a lot of bigoted allegations in his past. I don't play with any of that crap. I don't play with poverty boxes to stand in for welfare payments. When people need to get paid to feed their kids, ain't nobody got time. Remember when he was in office, and he gave people, he said it was like Blue Apron, some type of poverty boxes like you would see during war, so they can't pick their own food. People can go to the grocery store and get fresh fruit, and they should be allowed to do so for their children. People in poverty are the most prone to having bad diets because they can't pick their diets, and that's what the money is for, so they can go out and get decent food. To assume that people who are poor have bad diets and low levels of education and all of this, that's racist, okay? I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't have his tendencies, but I'm saying he does have common sense to say war is bad. So back to this, before I go on to the next point, situation with Beyonce. These people I'm hearing stood outside of Kamala's, whatever it was, rally, and in Houston, and they had advertised it on the news as, I heard, a Beyonce concert, quote unquote. Well, of course, she decided not to do the concert. She spoke or something, and the crowd's ticked off now. These supposedly are her own fans canceling her because they wanted her to do a concert. Now, the irony of this, you went to a political rally, there's war on the horizon, and you're worried and ticked off, not because there's a war and people aren't talking about it, or a possibility of a war here, or us intervening in one unnecessarily. You're concerned because you didn't get to see Beyonce at a political rally doing a concert. This is, unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Like, do you really hear yourselves because you wanted a free concert? Like I said, I cannot fathom. You're, if anything, playing into the hands of the Democrats because they think you're stupid and you're acting just like that. I don't like the word stupid. I just can't think of another word right now that would substitute. I think we need to be beyond I missed a free concert. I think we need to be looking at, if anything, was she associated with Diddy and those sexual assaults? And if she knew anything about it, why didn't she say anything? I'm not going to get into any other allegations people are saying. I'm not getting into gossip. Was she involved in some type of child trafficking, child molestation, whatever? I don't know. You're dealing with Hollywood, and I'm going to tell you, they call it Hollywood for, a good reason. So we're going to stop that there. But I'm thinking never the two should have ever met in the first place. Unless you're talking about, no, they didn't bring her up here instead of talking about the issues. You're mad about a concert? I just don't even get it. I don't know why she showed up. They need to keep that. And you need to stop following behind celebrity worship. Idol worship is bad, especially when you're dealing with politics. You can like a particular artist. You're supposed to. They have likability as a psychological thing. You're supposed to do it. They make them likable, even if they're awful people. But you're not supposed to use that only in order to make good decisions about your livelihood. Is their likability going to pay your bills? Feed your kids? Pay your taxes? No. And I think that this is so goofy. It's still working. I can't believe it. You really just have to pay closer attention, in American politics, period. No matter what race you are. So let's go on to number 3. There's no deterrence to illegal immigrants, right? Because Kamala has said that she's not going to do that. In fact, I saw just yesterday that, or was it day before, Donald Trump did a town hall, and this Latino woman said openly to him, or I should say blatantly to him, we want open borders. Latino people want open borders. Okay. Now, to tell you the truth, people know that I have Native American heritage, even though I didn't grow up with my grandmother, who was on my father's side, who had the Native American. And I've seen some Native Americans try to identify with this aspect of it. Others, such as myself, no way. So it just really is divided down the middle. It's just like Thanksgiving. Some Native Americans can't stand it. I really can't stand it, and I only have some Native American heritage, but I can't stand it. I can't stand colonialism, the objectification, the lies about the turkey, about being friends, all that. I hate it. Some people just greedy and like to eat, right? Tell it like it is. Some Native Americans still, like, what do they call now? The commanders. They liked it when it was the Redskins. They didn't take any offense to it. Others, of course, hated it and wanted them to change the name. So this is the debate in Native American communities. I want people to understand it's not just one way. But as far as this illegal immigration is concerned, it hurts us to have open borders for several different reasons. One of which is human trafficking. Okay, human trafficking is the largest crime in the world right now. Okay, it is something where it's more profitable to sell humans than drugs, and this is how bad it is. And of course, we also have the drug epidemic that's coming across the border as well, and this is number 4. So when you're thinking about the people that are coming across that border being bought and sold, wanting to pay back traffickers and can't, and being forced into prostitution, having their children be raped, and I hate to be graphic like that, but this is what happens. And then having these people who are known criminals in their country, this is true, this is textbook. This is not Donald Trump racist propaganda. This is just facts. And this is another thing that I think people need to educate themselves about. There's a difference between rhetoric from a racist and just a textbook fact. Now, if you see someone ramping up that rhetoric, okay, that person, you can tell it's fake, right? But you have to do your own research to figure out how fake is this? What is true? What isn't true? Okay, you have to do it. These things do happen. They've been happening since before Barack Obama. It needs to be handled. I don't know if Kamala is going to do anything about this. She claims she is. I'm the top cop and all of this and all of that. But I think she's full of baloney. In all honesty, I think she is also in favor of open borders, and that is not going to work. There is no country in this world that has an open border. You can be in the middle of nowhere and have the smallest country on earth, other than that guy who bought a small country in the desert somewhere and named it after himself. You're going to have, and he probably has a fence up, you know what I'm saying? But other than that, every country has a border, and they have a right to have a border because you have to protect the sovereignty of your country. You need to know who's coming in there to protect your citizens. And I agree with that. I don't agree that you should make it the most difficult process possible, right? You don't have to be overly zealous and background check, fingerprint checks. But I can tell you, I'm in Asia right now, and they do that. They do that crap at every airport interval. They won't let you out of the airport until you do customs, fingerprinting, passport. They take your picture 20 times. You can't get in and out of terminals until you scan your passport. Then you got to take a picture. You got to turn to the side. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. If you think your privacy in the United States, is being taken for granted, go somewhere else and see how they treat us. And they don't care if you're American. They don't care where you're coming from. They don't care where you're going. I think you're being scammed. White liberalism is telling you, because you want to know who's coming into your country, even a vague ID. Because these illegal immigrants don't have that. You don't know where they came from. Because you're actually asking for someone to identify themselves even vaguely, that something's wrong with you. You're not being right. That's not fair to them. They're lying to you. Everywhere you go, they do this. And on top of that, you have monumental fees that you have to pay. You have to have travel visas. You have to have permanent visas. You have to submit your paperwork and be approved. They don't care who you are, where you're from. And they're looking for people with money, because their retirement visas and things of that nature in other countries, by the way, cost a lot of money. They don't know that Americans don't get paid that much, that only the elites really have that type of money. Do they care about income inequality in the United States? No. And so they do this without shame, not only in Asia, but in other countries as well. Their retirement visas are generally very expensive, and their resident visas, if you stay, are very hard to get. So you're talking about the difference between, I'm just going to come over and do whatever I want to do and deal with the rest later, like what's going on in the U.S. I'm not going to tell you who I am. I ain't going to tell you where I'm from. Or I'll give you a fake name, a fake ID, throw out my passport with my real stuff in it on the way to the border. because I need you to understand the difference between propaganda and what's really going on in the world. And Asian people that come over that border in the opposite direction going to the U.S., they know that already. They're coming for the opportunities that supposedly America offers. But the thing is, many of these opportunities were given to them because of the hard work that African Americans did, and also because of the years of slavery, oppression, and repression, and all the things that happened that aren't being acknowledged. And Kamala's not doing that. And it really damn near should be illegal, but it's definitely wrong. It's immoral. And I can't get over that. That's something, not just because I'm African American, but because no one in their right mind would sit here and try to pretend to be someone, or at least something of a supposed version of them, a black person from another country, and an ally, and ignore that. Oh, yeah, I feel your pain, but, back to immigration. Okay. So the next point here, enough on that, 5, her actual policy on this grant situation. And we know Joe Biden did the same thing, and there has been talk that she actually just copied Joe Biden's agenda from the last election and then input a few new things, and that's just disturbing. I'm not even going to go into that. That's disturbing, that's lazy, that's incomprehensibly ridiculous. But I digress. We'll go over it. No grants for anyone but quote-unquote new parents and new home owners. What? Huh? In my Cam Newton voice and every other person that has ever said that. Who exactly, I wonder, would that be? It will most likely create further income inequality for African Americans, because we know who she's giving these grants to. How many of us had a parent who was lucky enough finally to own a home? Because she has changed this a few times, so I have to look at the new updated jargon that she has on her site. Okay, I'll be honest, I'm not going to look at it because I think it's just BS. But if I were, I would have to check to see if she's changed again. But it was just for first generation homeowners. What? You know how long African Americans have been in this country? And somewhere along the line, one of our people managed to get a home? And now we can't get one? What about '08 and the crash and all the people that lost their homes? What about Katrina? What about the people in North Carolina just lost their homes? All these people would not be able to utilize this grant. What about getting money for children? I agree, they should have extra money for new parents. I absolutely agree, but not new parents only. Perhaps you should give some to other people that already have kids. Duh. And then, give new parents a little something to help them along. When I adopted my son, they had a small grant, a one-time grant. So I agree. But obviously, adoption is just not the same as taking care of your own child. Adoption has a separate set of circumstances, especially when you adopt from foster care, because at that point, you're going to take on a whole new lexicon of things that you're going to have to deal with, depending upon, where that child came from. So there's a reason for that, right? But this, if she's trying to compete with Sweden or one of the countries that says it's one of the happiest countries in the nation, they're going to have to do a lot better than this. They're going to have to give longer lunch breaks. They're going to have to give women more rights, period. And they're going to have to do more than just new parents, because at this point, we know she's talking about immigrants. Our birth rate, unfortunately, has been down for a while in African American communities, and I think she knows that. So at this point, it's like, are you talking to us, or is this another scam? Because to me, and Joe Biden did promise this as well, and it never propagated, just like the student loan thing. So, and I understand he's in court, he's trying to do it the right way, and it's up and down and up and down. It is, it isn't, it is, it isn't. But come on. This is her whole thing, too. As soon as we get it through Congress, right. You know how silly that sounds? It's got to go through the House and the Senate. You know, the same thing with the immigration bill. And the possibilities of that happening. So she's not telling you she's going to do an executive order just as soon as we can get it through Congress. And Congress is going to turn that mess down so darn fast, especially the Republicans. So I'm like, okay, this is pretty much a sham at this point. And also, we have to understand, 6, that it's discriminatory against anyone that isn't a new parent and possibly a new homeowner or a new immigrant. You know what I'm saying? And they just had this happen. Remember, you guys in California who were paying attention to the reparations debate with Gavin Newsom, he actually deterred both of those bills at the same time. And I don't think that was a coincidence, because the Hispanic community tried to push through something just for them, for housing. We have housing laws, and that's illegal to do that. I can't say I just want housing for African American people, and they can't say I'm going to push through this grant just for migrants or Hispanic people or whomever. This is why she's hiding what she's doing, because it's discriminatory and it's wrong. And it's even discriminatory to say I'm just going to give money to new parents. You can give money to all children, because I guarantee you, children that are hungry aren't just children of new parents, right? So get real. That's not going to do anything to deter the poverty rate. And why would you start now, just when there's this big immigration spike, because her and Joe Biden decided not to do anything about it? I just don't buy that. I don't buy coincidences. You know what I'm saying? Nothing is a coincidence, and it's ridiculous. So 7, moving on, racial profiling for African Americans. Now, again, I mentioned before, she said ICE was the KKK, right? I don't think I've ever heard this woman mention racism for the African American community unless she was objectifying it. That little girl was me and busing. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You know, right after desegregation and all that, I think we all were bused. I was bused for a while when I went to what we used to call junior high. Now they call it middle school. And then we finally got the money to move over there so I can attend high school there. But all the lower income kids were bused over to, you know, what we used to call WBHS, White Boy High School. You know, the real name was Western Branch, but we call it, you know, White Boy High School because there was a lot of rich white kids there. And we went to school with them. And Lord knows I was in the majority of the honors and accelerated classes. So I went to school, you know, directly with them. You know what I mean? And that was very popular in the 80s and early 90s. So this is not new to us. But she made it seem like she was directly out of a textbook. And I dare say maybe she got that speech from someone during the 60s and 70s who told her to say that. So now she's participating in the racial profiling of African Americans by pretending to be black herself. So this creates cognitive dissonance, and people are like, well, you know, is this migrant, immigrant, whatever, possibly this, that, or the third, or is this African American person possibly a migrant? It adds to racial profiling. I'm not saying in either circumstance that it's right. It's wrong in every circumstance. But if you're going to complain, and I just mentioned this on my Instagram post about someone racially profiling immigrants and being the KKK and all of that, perhaps you should have taken care of that racial profiling for African Americans first before you opened your mouth. Because that's a hypocritical thing to do. And it's not just ICE, it's the entire police department. It's white Americans. And Lord knows if you're over here, overseas, it's definitely them, because they are absolutely confused. So you have to understand, you know, you can't do, you know, one thing and then actually say another. And you can't just do it for one faction, of a population because it suits you. And those of you who are out there thinking that this is some liberal thing to do, don't be foolish. It's an absolute exploitation of black culture. And I want to be specific and say African American culture because there are black people all over the world, okay? So, let's get to the last point here. The child tax credit. This was Joe Biden's talking point. And I did mention before, and I'll say it again, I had my first child in the 90s. And we had the child tax credit. We had it all the way up into, as a matter of fact, Trump came into office, which I think a lot of people don't understand. He was wrong for taking it away, but whatever circumstances, I don't remember honestly, that caused that to happen. Maybe he was just basically being greedy. It's not something that it's a miracle to bring it back. It always was. It just stopped for a few years and all they had to do was reinstate it. But it became this marching rally, this talking point. We're going to give you this like we've given you something special like you never had it before. We've always had it. We've always had it. And that was the minimal amount of what they could do was give us something back for child care and for having a child. And it's a very small amount. And I think that what gets me, because, when Jasmine was little, my daughter, she's an adult now, of course, I used to have to pay daycare all the time because I used to work all the time. And so I was in the office and I'd sometimes have to work overtime on the weekends as a side note. And I back in the day, it was like $100 or so, $135 a week or something. And, I'm a single mom. So I used to have to worry, okay, if I'm working overtime and I got to pay daycare overtime, what sense does that make? And I understood those women at that time, just at that moment, that later on I became an adjunct and I had a student who wanted me to sign off on her paperwork for social services because she needed to let them know I'm attending school. And she didn't have a ride. She showed up in a cab and she was missing days of class because she didn't have a ride. I understood this. And the whole Clinton thing with you need to go to school and work in order to receive welfare. Because at that time I wasn't getting anything. And I was working overtime just to pay daycare. And her father, Jasmine's father wasn't paying much in child support. And I was back and forth to court trying to get this person, I'm not going to comment on him, to pay just a little bit so that he could, do his part so that I could actually just go to work and just get by. And I think that little bit of child tax credit did help out at the end of the year, right? So I remember that. And, it allowed for us maybe to go on a little vacation or for me to take some time off or, take her somewhere or whatever. But when we're talking about the reality of this person, it's like brainwashing, memory loss, thinking, okay, we're going to give you this nice thing back that you had for 20, 30 years. I mean, really? And then it's going to be better than anything you've ever seen before. You're returning it back to where it was. And many people are saying, well, that's just backsliding. It's not just backsliding. It's you thinking and being brainwashed into thinking this is the best you've ever had, and all you've ever had was at least the minimum. So you'll never ask for anything more. It's control. It's social control. And yes, it does look a lot like socialism. It looks a lot like communism. I mean, it can go in either direction. It could go into fascism. And I know you guys are saying I'm wrong, but sometimes when people hide racism, they hide racism. I've told you before, the Democrat and the Republican. The Republicans are wearing a white hood, the Democrats aren't. You know what I mean? There's really no difference. And that's the truth. You've seen the meme, right? There's no difference. You just have to understand. And this is, the truth. understand when people tell you you're not getting but the minimum, but that's the best thing you've ever seen, that perhaps you need to look further into what's going on there in that situation. And it keeps happening because you're going to keep getting less and less until at the end of the day, you're not going to have anything. You will own nothing and be happy, and that's what they want. And I know they did it to me. Whenever I moved anywhere, they made sure to make a big ruckus about it and try to get rid of our family and had us competing with other African-American people, made sure the man and his wife, the black man and his wife, were insecure about themselves, parking in our parking space in front of our house, harassing us, made sure they found a black man with low self-esteem to come and bother us. I couldn't believe it. But, again, if you didn't have black men that participated in this, you wouldn't have the racism and sexism that we see today. You wouldn't have had Kevin Samuels. You wouldn't have the demonization of single moms. You wouldn't have stereotypical people trying to make it seem as if we're somehow delineated from intelligence and reality. And, trying to treat us as if we're the other, when we're the ones that are holding up the family. And that's the truth. Pushing and pimping patriarchy isn't going to help the black family. And I think a lot of this rhetoric with Kamala about the black men aren't voting for her, yes, they've already gone through that. It doesn't matter. The black men don't really have the largest vote. I'm not trying to be rude, but it's really going to be a situation where black women and white women are going to probably control this race. White women are the hidden hand of Trump. We already know that. And black women have always been the largest voting bloc of, any community, because we're the first ones there, boy. And I cannot stress enough to you that black men are not the only ones having doubt about Kamala. See, white liberalism wants to paint this as a sexist debate, and it's not. I can tell you it's not intersectional sexism or racism. It's not. It's just people don't believe her. They don't like her. She's not being an intellectual person. I've told you that for us to articulate and for her not to articulate is racist, because we're sitting here being told this is who you are. And I think it's being done purposely in order to make it seem as if, honestly, black women are stupid. It's an insult to our intelligence level. And it's concerning, and it should be a red flag and a signal to every African American. You can be co-opted. And if anything, it's her who's sexist, because she's so interwoven with Donald Trump and what he's going to do. And even the white broadcasters on, CNN, who are always biased towards the Democrats, notice that. Like, she doesn't have her own agenda. She just focused solely on Trump. And when she does give these points I just went over, they still make no sense. It just looks like a blackmail scheme. Either you do this or it gets worse. The way I see it, in all honesty, it's going to get worse either way, because Trump's going to have his own crazy czar-like agenda. Irregardless of what he says he's going to do, we all know by the end of that term, he's going to be crazy and out of control, possibly. That's what Congress is truly for. If they would do their jobs, they tried impeaching him several times before. I think that's more of his personality, and that is something where it's going to be a trade-off. Do you want to deal with that so that we can actually get people to control the border, to get the prices down? Because it is in between, they're saying, I don't believe it, but, an economy that's overly inflated and actually some type of stagnation or something. I don't believe it. I think that what I mentioned before, for those of you guys who follow me on X, okay, there's a buildup of our freight and things coming into the United States, because going back to Israel, they're blocking things in Iran. The Houthis and a number of people that they've labeled terrorists are not letting the goods through because they're protesting the genocide. and Gaza specifically, and they've said that. They didn't say we're just terrorizing people. They said we're not going to let things through. So our goods are literally, because a lot of our oil goes through there as well as our other, goods and services are not getting here. And it's been happening for a long time, as long as there's been the war in Gaza. And these prices continue to go up because of that reason, and they're just not telling you that. A lot of our things are imported here. So please understand, until we get the war in Gaza fixed, the prices are not going to go down. I don't care how much the Fed goes up or down, half a point or whatever the crap that he decides to make up next. It's just basically going to be us paying out of our behinds until the situation is resolved. Another thing they're not mentioning to you is a number of our parts for labor, even in Detroit, go through Taiwan. They also go through, what's it called? I'm trying to think of the name of it. Strait du Hormuz. It's close. I know I butchered that, but I'll think of it later. But it's just when it goes through this particular waterway, they're fighting over this waterway. We get our parts even for cars that are manufactured in Detroit, even though it says made in America. Primarily, the primary, chip that we need for these cars comes from Taiwan. A lot of our parts come from other areas. It's really assembled in the USA, right? And we need to start recognizing that more. We need to understand that we're not necessarily as good as we are without our allies and the ones that we're not recognizing, not just Israel. And I think it's Hordu Tammuz. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly, but it's okay. I'll get it later. Not often that I make a mistake, but I just kind of put that in there because I wanted to emphasize that these things are coming to the United States as imports, and we're not getting them. And we need to stop thinking all of this rhetoric of we're the best, because we do rely a lot on other countries. And when it comes down to it, we need to know where our merchandise is coming from. We need to know why it's inflated right now. We need to know why our food is super inflated. They're not telling you. I'm not even mentioning BlackRock and all the land they're buying up and everything else that's happening with the rental market and the housing market, but neither is Kamala. So when we start to think about all the things that are going wrong and no explanation is being given, I don't know. I just can't accept that either nothing's going to get done, because that's what it's going to be for her, and it's still going to get worse, a lot worse, especially for African American people, or Donald Trump, something might get done, and it's still going to get worse, a lot worse for African American people. Like, this is not a lesser of two evils. It's blackmail. You're not going to gain anything but a headache. Maybe Donald Trump will, lose his mind and give us reparations, but I don't know. No, there's no telling what the man might do. And that's problematic. And really, honestly, I think this is a situation where it's at a danger level that we need to recognize. Those of you guys who have degrees in psychology, have studied psychology, we're at Maslow's lowest level, right? We're dealing with safety and security right now, and they keep us at that level. And this is what you need to understand. It's purposely being done. They want you to stay at that fear level. And you need to demand, as American citizens, other American citizens, that we don't have to be at the lowest level, psychologically, always preparing for our safety, because you're never going to achieve anything if you can't get off of that lowest level. I'm telling you, they did it to me too. And they love to keep thinking they're doing it because that's how they maintain control in their own minds. But the reality is, they're full of crap. They love to try to destabilize single parents. They love to try to push you around. They love to be jealous of you and try to send goons in and all this kind of stuff. It didn't work. You have to understand, if you stand up for yourselves, you don't have to be the lowest level, always worried about your own safety and security. This is where they're putting you at but you have to say something. So really, I think for this session, episode 2, that's what I wanted to say. There's probably a lot more, but I don't want to talk forever and ever and ever. I do want to try to see, I did get my Cash App set up, so I'm going to try to get that onto all of my pages, because yes, you guys can donate. I do not think that I'm going to do something attached to video. I might, because that does entail a lot more time, and I don't honestly have a lot right now, but I might try to transition something to video and put it onto YouTube, because I know there are some visual learners out there. I'm sorry, I do like some YouTube videos, but I learn better by reading. Maybe I'm old school. I know visual learning works. I'm a teacher. I get it. Or I should say I'm an instructor. I'm not a K through 12 teacher. But I think sometimes it's better for you guys to hear it as well, because then it makes it so that you can firmly listen to what I'm saying and concentrate on it. So let me think about it to see if I can't work it out, so that I can find the time to do that as well, if you think it's going to help you. But I think that it's common sense a lot of times. I think people are afraid of themselves, and they talk themselves out of believing things because they don't want to be different, but they know the truth. It's like with Diddy and the sex trafficking. Everyone can't possibly be lying on this dude. He's got people coming out. I mean, the woman shot him in the face, or he shot the woman in the face. He lied about helping people after that incident where people died. That was actually a second incident. I'm sorry. The people died at the event that he held at the college. And he said he helped the people out, and he didn't help them. Reports later came out he lied about that to make himself look better. I mean, we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, possibly delusion, possibly, some type of psychotic behavior where he has a fascination with, wealth and power. I don't know what else it could be. And it turned into some perversion. Yeah, I don't know. People would rather believe that he didn't do anything versus, later on an event happened where he shot a woman in the face when he was with J-Lo. And a woman said she saw him shoot her in the face, and then he walked. I mean, just major stuff, not even gossip. Could have been, he killed Kim Porter type deal. No, it was, I saw this dude do this. And people saying it was sex trafficking, they saw him do things. He did things. People coming forward say, oh yeah, he, tried to make me stay. And I told him no. These are not, I don't think people talking to one another. I think it's just something where it's better to be said. And I will tell people, back in the day, I did used to model myself just a little bit. I was working, again, as a single mom, a full-time job. And on the weekends and things, I'd go and fly out and model and do all this kind of stuff, as a part-time job. Because I used to work 2 jobs and get a babysitter again for my daughter so I could go out and do that. And I actually ran into one of these photographers, I guess you want to call him a photographer, who had a professional site, all of that. It seemed legit, paid me to come out. And he wasn't what, this is long before trafficking even had a name. It was unheard of. The internet had just come up, and this guy had a back page site that was linked to the dark web, and it was really scary, because I got there and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't, and I remember it to this day because it was terrifying. No one had ever heard of this stuff in the 90s. I know you think we're gullible, but it just was not something that I had ever seen in my life. And I'm pretty street knowledgeable. I always watch my back. I never go where I think it's going to be dangerous. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy looked legit. But looking back, I heard Tyra Banks talking about some guy called Dirk to Jerk. He sounds a lot like him. And she had met up with him one time before. And to this day, when I think about trafficking, I think, I'm glad I got out of there. I just got out of there as fast as I could. And I did not look back. Because I'd never, never heard of anything, but I'm telling you guys, if you think it doesn't happen like that, it does. Like, this guy was a porn guy. That was it, what the other site was. And I was like, what the, I need to, wait a minute, and this dude could have had a gun. He could have had anything. And it was just like, what? That is what it feels like. People aren't gullible that are trafficked. People aren't stupid. They put up a good front. I guess it's more like that Abercrombie and Fitch type thing. You're going for a job interview, you go in there, and you think everything's legit, and then you get there, and then you're like, what the, Now, the smart people will get the heck out of there if they can. If they can. Those people that went along with it, like at Abercrombie and Fitch, and kept going along with it, I can't agree with that. Thinking they were going to keep the job and all this. Hey, suck it up, take the humiliation, and get the heck out of there. That's what I did. And F every damn thing else. Thank goodness I had enough money to make it home. And go to the airport and get out of there as fast as possible. My only regret was not reporting it to the police, because I think people are so embarrassed. And I really honestly didn't think anyone would ever believe me. Being a black woman, I think, especially in the 90s, that wouldn't have happened. I know for a fact it wouldn't happen. It would have sounded like the most unbelievable thing, because up until the last, 10 years or so, many people that, that didn't have degrees, like have an MPH2, like we studied that in public health, but people that don't have a background in it, they wouldn't have believed any of this Diddy stuff anyway. They didn't believe it until he just got arrested not too long ago, or until the video with Cassie came out. No one believed that trafficking was a big thing, even though for the last few years I've been telling people about human trafficking over the border and sex trafficking contributing to the black femicide we're having, which they still don't believe that we're having. You tell people over and over again things, but they don't believe it until it's too late. And that's one of the reasons why I continue to do what I'm doing, even though I'm angry. I'm not going to lie about people just not getting it. Just listen. No one's asking you to be my best friend. No one's asking you to even follow me if you don't want to, but you do have to listen, at least so that you can in the future be your own advocate. So that's all I got. I'll talk to you guys later. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And I'm sorry I'm a little late with the podcast. I've been kind of busy trying to keep up with everything. It isn't always easy, but I do want to make sure that I do chime in and get as much done as possible, so that we can hopefully get on the right track and get to where we're going, and we can stop all of the confusion. I just don't see, with a person such as myself, for example, how there can be confusion, because I try to be as, transparent and as clear as possible. So anyway, I'm out. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please email me, let me know, contact me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. All right. And again, this is Wayward Woman. I am Alicia Gray, and I am out. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.